All right, so we're going to play around with this some more and add a radio button because that's part of your assignment for the different formulas for the A1C calculator. But my BMI calculator here doesn't really have a reason for a radio button. So I came up with one just for fun that we're going to make it, let's make this guy taller. All right, make it bigger. There we go. So I'm going to add a radio button here that will change the calculation based on whether you're American or the rest of the world. And so if you're American, I'm going to add 20 pounds to your weight so that your BMI goes up, just for fun. Just I'd have something to introduce a radio button. That's the only thing I could think of. I could. That would have been good. I could have changed to metric input. That's probably a lot better, but I'm going to do it this way anyway. So this is more funny. So inside of my my page here, radio buttons, if you have two of them, they typically, if in a website you have a radio button, you put them in a group, right? So that one turns on, the other one turns off. And you do that by making the IDs the same, or the names the same, like that. In here, a container called a radio group. So we're going to add a radio group here that we will adding place to put our radio buttons. All right, so let's add a radio button inside of our group, and let's add two of them. All right, so I've got two radio buttons inside of a radio group, and you can see that it's part of this radio group here. So let's change this. My text is going to be American, and we'll call this RDO American, something like that. And let's make this checked because we want that to be the default, all right, when it comes up. Then we'll call this one World. Boy, why didn't I think of that before? That would have been good. And call this RDO World. All right, so I've got my IDs here that I can use, and I can access these values now inside of my program, right? So we first put them on the layout. The next thing we have to do is tie them into our code. So oops, wrong program. So I need a place to access that, and I forgot to change my radio group to have an ID as well, because we can check the group to find out which of the buttons inside that group is selected, and that's the easiest way to figure it out. So we're going to call this selected weight location group is what I called it. Weight location group. All right, and in this ID we have to put that @ sign plus ID / weight location group. All right, we have to have that ID @ plus ID, just like these others have that @ plus ID. All right? So in our main code, we need to have some variables that I can access that information from. All right, so we're going to have a variable of type radio group, and we'll call this one the weight location group. We need to have a place for each of my buttons, just to show you radio button, and we'll call this RDO American and RDO World. All right, and it's telling us that we don't have that package, that widget in place, so we do our Alt-Enter here, and that will load the right package for me. Actually, what it did was it changed my widget to include everything. See this widget.star. All right, so I've got a radio button. Let's have a Boolean too, so that I can use it in an if statement easier rather than checking the status all the time. So I'm going to use a Boolean. We'll call it American. If it was Ruby, I would have a question mark on it, but we can't do that. So American is going to be true as the default. We've already checked that American is true in the XML file as the checked ID. So now we need to get that data, just like we did here. We need to go and get and fill in those variables by querying the XML file for a pointer to that particular field, right? So we have our weight location group is of type radio group, and we're going to do the find view by ID from our main resource file in the ID, and it's going to be weight location group. Now notice, because I put it in my XML file already, in my view, my layout, IntelliSense automatically knows it's there. Then I need each of the buttons, so I've got my RDO American, and that's of type radio button. Find view by ID, r.id.rdo American. And then we've got RDO World. Isn't that nice? This IntelliSense pops it up for me all the time. Find view by ID, r.id.rdo world. All right, so now I have places where I can get that value in my main program. And I need to have a place to a method or a function to call when the button is clicked, so that I can change the values in my main program, right? I can, if they click on any of my radio buttons, I want to run a method to go and see what is checked now, so that I can change my Boolean American now to be false, something like that, right? So I need a method, and we'll call it radio button clicked, and it needs a view passed to it. All right, everybody with me so far? No? All right, so let's just do a log.info, and we'll say radio button clicked, and we need my activity as the context so that I can filter the log for this information. Now, how do I tie the clicking of the button to this method? Right. So if I go back to my main XML file and I click on these radio buttons, let's make these left so that they look a little better. For each of my radio buttons, there's an on-click here, right? And so I can change that and call my radio button clicked method. Right? And I need to do that for both of them. So no matter which one they click, it's going to call this radio button clicked method. All right? So they're both set up the same way. All right? So when they click this, it's going to go to my radio button clicked method, and for now, all it's going to do is log this out to the screen. So let's run this guy. All right, so let's look at my Android log, and we did it as an info, right? So we want to look at info in my activity, and let's see that this changes when I click on my little radio buttons now. So if I click on world, it said radio button clicked, right? Sweet. Click on American, radio button clicked. All right, so I now have it coming from my interface into my code, and I just have to do something in this radio button clicked to capture their selection, right? I need to save that so that I can use it later when I calculate out their BMI. All right? So let's go back to here in my radio button clicked method, and let's do something. So first of all, there's a method that I can use that I'm going to call selected ID is going to be from the weight location group. That's the group surrounding the two radio buttons, right? There's a method that I can say get checked radio button ID. Isn't that handy? All right, so that tells me which ID, which radio button was selected at the time this is clicked. So it's after it's clicked, I now know which one is selected. And I can use that to find some I can have some variable like selected as a radio button type, and I can say I can typecast it as a radio button, and there is a method called find view by ID, and I pass it the ID that was selected, and that gives me the actual radio button object from the screen, and from that I have all the properties associated with that, right? I've got its name and all kinds of other stuff that I can do with that. All right, so 2 lines of code to actually get the radio button that I want. And then I can do something with that. So let's log this out again. My activity, and let's log out the selected dot get text. All right, get text will give me the value of the name of the button. So it'll be like world or American. Except I got a problem here. Yeah, it's different. It's not consistent. So that will convert it to a string and print it to the page. So let's run it again. Re-upload it. Go back to my Android log. Clear my log. So I click on world, and it printed out radio button clicked, and world was selected. I click it again, American, my radio button was clicked, and now the value of it is American. All right, so I can use these values to do something in my code. All I need to know is American checked or not? Right, that's all I really need to know, because I'm going to store that in my Boolean that I've separated out for that. So I can also call, excuse me. So my American is my Boolean that I've set as one of my class instance variables up here. I can just say, go to the American button directly and tell me if it's checked or not. All right, so is checked is going to return, what do you think? True or false, right? A Boolean. So that Boolean I'm storing in my American. So that's all I really have to do in my class is, after they click on this, is my American button checked? If it is, I'm going to, no matter what it is, if it's true or false, I'm going to store it in my American variable. So every time they click on this, this is really the main piece of code that I need here. All right, but I wanted to show you different ways of getting at the location group and things like that. All right, any questions on that? So if they check it, it would be nice that it does the calculation automatically for me, right? I don't have to reselect my calculate button. So how would I make this so that when they click on the radio button, that it automatically calculates my BMI again? There you go. So at the end of this, I'm going to call my calculate BMI, and my BMI doesn't really need anything, so I'm going to pass in null for the view. So now when I check it, it's going to recalculate the BMI, which in this case doesn't do anything yet. But every time I click it now, it's going to call this method at the end of that operation. All right? So let's make use of this calculation inside of, make use of this radio button now, the value of it inside of my calculate method. So what I decided to do was, if the American is selected, then I'm going to add 20 pounds to the person. All right? So if American, that's all I have to do, then I'm going to change my weight, and I'm going to add 20 pounds. All right? That's it. Right? So Americans are big old fatties. Right.
You know, it's like if it's Americans, limit 3, everyone else, limit 1.
Right. So this is just a quick way to do that. Doug's suggestion of turning this into metric versus English would be ideal for this. This would make more sense. But where's the fun in that, right? So I thought this was more funny. So. Okay, well, we'll see. We won't, because this weight is only being used during this calculation, and then it's thrown away. I'm never putting that back into their top. It's a hidden calculation. It doesn't affect the. So let's put in my height and my weight, and calculate just to see American, I'm overweight. And if I click world now, it's going to call my radio button clicked, right? Which sets my American variable true or false. So in this case, my weight goes down. It recalculated. Notice my BMI went down, right? So clicking American, I'm fatter than I would be, right? So that's all that does. Isn't that cool? So we've added a checkbox, a radio button. Works pretty good. Any questions on that? Pretty simple, right? No real gotchas there. I get tired of looking in the log, so there's another way of printing stuff to the screen that you'll see in a lot of tutorials online. And the method is called toast. All right? So instead of printing it to the log when they check this, so let's take this out and this out. I can do a call to this toast method, which is built in, toast.makeText. It's a little bit complicated. I have to tell it what activity it's coming from. So I tell it myActivity.this, which is, mine is still called myActivity, right? Yes. All right, myActivity.this, and the second argument is the text that I want it to send, which would be it's going to be selected ID dot get text. Selected, no. This one, yes, selected, not selected ID. Sorry. All right. Dot get text, and then the last parameter is a value that tells how long or how short this message is, and this is a short one, so I'm going to say length.short. All right.
That's probably like JavaScript where you can pass it in milliseconds.
Yeah. So right. So this is now going to print something to the screen, to the Android screen itself. So let's run this guy. Yeah. There used to be a screensaver in the old days, in the 80s, called Flying Toaster.
Oh, yeah.
You remember that? And it flew little toasters across the screen. All right, so now that's going to get called every time I click this button. So I click on World. Oh, and we crash. Isn't that wonderful?
Star Trek screensavers. I still think Kirk and Spock being chased with them.
Yeah. Yeah, those were fun.
For the tribbles filling up the screen. The Maze was the greatest screensaver ever. Oh, yeah, that's good.
All right, so let's go look. We have a runtime exception. Could not execute method of the activity. Well, that's not really useful. Well, it's happening in my radio button, obviously.
Yeah, I don't think it likes toast. You didn't add enough butter. You toasted the Android.
What did I do wrong with my make text
Maybe
here?
get text type to string.
No, I didn't have to do that over here, which is one of the things I was going to mention. It's inconsistent. This make text get text returns an array of characters rather than a string, which is slightly different. And so I didn't have to call two string on this one, which is weird.
I think you could comment it out, see if it's that line. You could.
Yeah, it's going to be that line, I know. Let's run it again. I just don't see it offhand. It's going to be something silly.
Mine just doesn't
Oh, crash.
It's because you don't have the fields filled in. That's why it crashed the first time.
Oh, you think so?
Yep. Yep.
Ah. All right. So that was way back when, huh? We didn't have that. So everything was working. Let's fix that by having some default in those values. So one way, easy way to begin with is to put a default text in here of 0. Obviously not the best way. We'll still have to have some error checking, but that will at least give me something to start with. So when I'm parsing those text fields in my calculate, I'm going to have to maybe put a try-catch around it, and if it fails, just make my pounds and heights 0. That'd probably be how I'd fix that. All right. Not a number. See, I got not a number, so that's good. All right, did I uncomment it? I didn't. I uncommented the log instead. Great. Oops. Ah! There we go. All right, let's run it again. And now we'll see my toasty here come up. And I'm dividing by 0 also in my BMI. So that's going to be a problem. So we'll have to fix that. But infinity, nice. But it's not showing my toast. We've got no toast here.
But it's not airing out.
It's not airing out, right? So, well, that's weird. I'm going to try wonder if it's different on my Mac.
Dot show.
Oh, that's what I forgot. I do have that in here. That's it. So I'm going to take this out just to show you that that's inconsistent. There we go. So this makes the text, and then I have to call the show method on the toast, and that displays this little window that'll pop up. It's like an alert message in JavaScript, except you don't have to tell it to go away. It will go away automatically. Yay, look at that. See that shows up down here, and then it will fade away eventually. There it goes. Click on American, shows American. Isn't that cool? All right. So that's a pretty useful way of doing a quick message to the screen that something happened, mostly for debugging, but you can use it for informational messages to the user as well. So I don't like having to write all of this every single time. So I took it and I made a method out of this, and I called it toast it. And all it will take is all it takes is the message that I want to pass, which is going to be this. All right, and then at the bottom inside of here, I'm going to add a new method, private void toast it, and it takes a string, And all that's going to do is call this method with the parameter passed in here, message. All right, so I think that's easier to use. I can now call toast it a lot simpler here. Interesting. Did I have to do that?
Well, you said it's a character array, not a string.
Yeah, right. So I'd have to call .toString. See, it's inconsistent, the APIs that Google has. It's really weird. These Android, little inconsistent as far as I'm concerned. Some of them take either, some only take one or the other. So, all right, any questions on our radio button? Pretty cool, eh? Right, so the last thing is to determine if when I've left the focus, okay? When I've left a particular text field. And this gets a little complicated. I've had to I haven't found a nice way to make this nicer, but everything I tried didn't work. So this is how I ended up having to do this. The two fields that I'm interested in are the two edit texts, right? I have a wait in and a hide in edit text. So for my wait in, I can set a on focus change listener. All right, this is a little bit like jQuery, where I'm going to set a value, an anonymous function, for this listener to execute whenever the focus changes. Okay, so a lot like jQuery in this case. And so we have to create a new view.onFocus change listener, which is an anonymous function. So that looks a lot like jQuery, right? And we're going to call the override method public. We'll create a whole new method, public void on focus change, which takes a view and a Boolean called has focus. And inside of that, I'm just going to call my own little method that I'm going to create called handle on focus change. And I'm going to pass it the same values. All right, so I'm going to write this method. But this is now going to establish this anonymous function here so that whenever the focus changes on my wait in text, edit text, it's going to call eventually through this chain my handle on focus change method. All right? So I need to do that same thing, and this is where I didn't like it. This is the same code, and I could not figure a nice way to dry this up. Everything I tried didn't work. So I have to do the same thing, except on my hide in. So because I want to call the same handle on focus change. Because in this case, if they move out of that field, I might as well calculate the BMI again, right? So as soon as they move out of the field, that's eventually what I want to do. So my handle on focus change is going to be the same for either of those edit texts. All right, so let's create my handle on focus change, public void handle on focus change that takes two values, my view and my Boolean. And inside of this, I want to do something. And I can say if has focus, and I'm just going to do this to show you some different stuff. I'm gonna say toast it, and I'm gonna pass in whatever the view was to string, which is an interesting bunch of stuff. And I'm going to add a string that says got the focus. All right. And then else, I'm going to call my toast it. And we'll say lost the focus. All right. So this will print out. This will show on the screen a little message every time I leave those edit fields. All right, come on. Pretty speedy. So I'm here, I can type, I'm 70 inches, and when I hit tab, it's going to go to the next field, and I get at the bottom all of the information about that view as a string, and it says lost the focus. And this field got the focus. All right, so my weight input ID got the focus. So now I'm here, and I can type 180. And if I tab out of that, I should get another one. Weight input lost the focus. And that should be it, because there's nobody gained the focus. When I tabbed, it went to my calculate BMI button again here. All right? So how would I change this now so that whenever they leave this field, it automatically calculates their BMI? Yeah, I can just call my calculate BMI here again. And since my calculate BMI doesn't use the view, it doesn't matter what I pass to it. All right? So let's run it again. And you can do anything you wanted with that. If you gained the focus, then you could erase the other field. For instance, on the A1C, if you so that it would calculate the opposite, and then you could check to see if it was blank and that kind of thing. So I type in 70. When I hit tab, I should get a new, see, he weighs 0 and he's 70 inches tall, right? That's pretty seriously underweight. So if I then type 180 and I hit tab, it automatically recalculates, and I've got my overweight status here. Isn't that sweet? Cool stuff, eh? And notice how that message stayed up on the screen, and it kind of queues them all up. So if I do this a few times, it's going to show American, and then that will go away. And since I queued up a toast, the world should come back in a second. There you go. So it keeps showing. If I have a bunch of them, it'll eventually go through all of those Toast-its that I have, all right? I don't know. I haven't tried that. All right, any questions? Wasn't that fun? All right, next week we're going to add a new screen and show how to switch to a whole new screen and switch back and forth between different layouts, which is fun.